Welcome back to Season Liberally. You know, I'm always so excited when people are talking about recipes and there's a buzz around a recipe. And one of the biggest hashtags this week, it's a little weird because it's a summer soup and it's the middle of winter, but people are really excited about it. We're going to be doing Gazpacho today on Season Liberally. Hope you stick around. Gazpacho is one of my favorite summer soups, and it is a wonderful, delightfully refreshing soup. Middle of winter feels like a little weird time to have it, but people are excited about it, so we want to make sure we make a delicious, beautiful gazpacho for you today here. It's a super easy soup to make because you don't have to cook a lot. I am going to show you how to make some really wonderful croutons to go in it, so there will be a little bit of cooking involved, but all you really need for this is a food processor. So we're going to get started right away. So the first thing you want to do is you want to cut up your tomatoes. Now you can concasse the tomatoes if you like. So now if you want to concasse your tomatoes, which essentially means pulling the skin off and de-seeding them, you can absolutely do this for this recipe. I don't necessarily mind the skins. I will seed these. But if you want to concasse them, all you have to do is get a pot of boiling water going. You want to cut a little X in the bottom of your tomato, drop it into boiling water, let it sit for 30 seconds or so, and then you pull it out, not with your hands, with a utensil, and drop it directly into ice cold water. If you do that, let it sit for a minute, it should peel relatively easily. Now you may have to use the side of your knife or a paring knife or something to sort of get that going, but it should peel relatively easily. The skin should come right off, and then you don't have skin in the product, in the final soup. I don't necessarily dislike the skin. Now I will seed these because I'm not crazy about seeds. I chose not to today. Instead, what I'm going to do is just cut these tomatoes across the top. Then I'm going to just give them a squeeze to get as many of these seeds out into my refuse bowl. Once that's done, I am going to essentially just roughly dice these tomatoes. Not a lot of the stuff in this recipe really needs to be perfectly chopped. Now, if you want to garnish with anything, make sure you chop it very nicely, but I'm not going to garnish with any vegetables today. I'm going to be garnishing with croutons, so I don't necessarily need to be very careful with the soup preparation. So once I roughly chop my tomatoes, next I want to chop a pepper. Now I'm choosing a red pepper here to continue to add to this red color. Now I've seen a lot of messages online about a green gazpacho. Now I'm not sure about green here at all in this. I don't think it would be very good. I've also heard a lot of people mentioning marjoram too, and I would not put marjoram. Marjoram feels like a bad herb to put in this. I would stay away from marjoram. And I know a lot of people have been mentioning Nancy Pelosi's recipe for this. I couldn't find that, so I'm just giving you what I have. After the red pepper's been cut, you can see the way I cut it, the center just falls directly out of it, so I don't really have to worry about seeding it too much. Again, I'm going to roughly chop this into strips. It's all going to get completely processed when I put it in the food processor anyway. Next, I'm going to cut an onion. Now, I'm only going to use half an onion for this. I'm just going to nip the ends off here and cut the onion in quarters. Again, this is going to get processed, so it's not a big deal. I'm adding to this a little bit of cilantro. I'm using the stems because the stems are perfectly edible, and they will grind up very nicely in here. So I'm adding some stems and a little bit of leaves. I'm going to add a cucumber to this. Now the cucumber, I'm adding 2 cucumbers to this, to my 4 tomatoes. I like the cucumber flavor in this. Now you're going to want to seed your cucumber. Again, I seeded the tomatoes and I'm going to seed the cucumber as well. First I'm going to peel it. Now I'm going to slice it in half. Once it's in half, what I like to do is I like to score the sides where the seeds are with a spoon, the front of a spoon, so that it's a little easier to scoop the seeds out in one pull. This is especially useful if you're doing something like stuffing a cucumber or putting some sort of filling in there. It's especially useful if you want to keep that cucumber in that boat shape. You can easily score on the sides, and then it'll just, the seeds just come right out. Now we're gonna add a little garlic. I'm adding 2 small cloves of garlic. If you want to use a medium clove, a nice medium clove or a large clove. I'm gonna dice this up fine because I do want to make sure that this is really, really fine when it's finished. All right, so gazpacho, of course, served cold. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna grind this up and then we're gonna chill it. So first things, of course, we're gonna add all of these vegetables that I just cut, all these fresh vegetables, to my food processor. Now that's a beautiful, chunky looking gazpacho. It looks like there's a couple of little pieces in there that I want to pulse out, so I'm going to pulse it just a few more times. It's starting to turn into something really nice. Now, I want to talk about what I'm going to add to it. Now, first thing I'm going to add is I'm going to add a little bit of cumin. This is about a tablespoon of cumin to these 4 tomatoes. I want it to have a nice cumin flavor. I'm going to add about a teaspoon of smoked paprika. Smoked paprika in Spanish food is one of those marriages. They almost always use a good paprika. Very often it's smoked, and that adds a nice smoky flavor to this. I'm going to add a splash of this red wine vinegar to it, and then I'm going to add several tablespoons of this olive oil, as well as some salt and some pepper to round it out. Now, when I finish this soup, I am going to be adding this tomato puree to it. Now, you can add tomato juice if you like. You can also do what I'm going to do, which is add tomato puree, and if it still looks a little thick, I might add a little water. This tomato puree is a very thick, you'll see when I pour it out, it's very thick liquid, but it adds a lot of flavor to this, and so we're probably going to add a goodly amount of this tomato puree when we're finished. So now we're going to get it started. I'm going to add my spices right now and some salt and pepper. Now, we're going to put in what would probably be about a half a teaspoon of pepper in here. You would want to add pepper to your palate, add it to your taste. I'm going to splash some salt in here. Now you're going to salt to taste. I'm not going to tell you how much salt to put in here, but you definitely want to salt to taste to this. All right, so far we've got a beautiful soup, nice, and even though I haven't done much with it, right? I haven't done much with it. It's still got that chunky look to it, but it needs to be a lot looser than this, right? This is not a soup. This is like a salsa that we have right now. So this is tomato puree that I'm going to add to this. As you can see how thick this is really, really thick. It's going to thin this out a little, but I'm probably going to wind up adding some water to this still. So it's about a cup. You know what? I think I can thin this out just with this tomato puree. So I'm actually just going to use this whole bottle of tomato puree, 690 grams worth of this in here, because not only is it adding a nice color, I just tasted it and it has a really wonderful flavor too. So I'm going to add the rest of this. And I'm actually going to add just a touch of water to get everything out of here. I just added, maybe a quarter cup of water to this, just to shake up and get everything out of here. And that's okay. This thinness is what we want. We want it to be a little thinner. You're going to chill this. When you're done, it's not going to be as salty when you serve it. So remember that. So taste it. Make sure it tastes good. The other thing too is you want to check the acidity of it. You're going to want a nice balanced flavor, but you do want it to have some tartness. It's supposed to be tomato. So I'm going to add just a touch more vinegar to this, because what I want is I want it to be a little sour. I want it to have a little sour flavor. Right now it's pretty neutral. taste this and see how it tastes. That's perfect. A lot of great stuff going on in this, but here's the thing. I want to chill this for about an hour. I don't want to serve this right away. It could be served right away. There's a lot of harsh flavors in here though. There's the garlic and the onion. Those are going to mellow as it chills, and it won't have that same bite. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this in the fridge. We're going to put it in a container, a closed container, let it sit for about an hour, take those harsh edges off, let all the flavors meld, and then what we're going to do is we're going to work on our croutons, and everything's going to come together at the end. For a nice accompaniment to this, we're going to make a very simple crouton. Now, croutons are absolutely wonderful. Fresh croutons, there's really genuinely nothing like it. In fact, I would urge you to make your own bread, and then when your bread gets 2 or 3 days old, turn that into croutons. You know, I have a great bread recipe here on the channel. In fact, I have it's 2 different recipes. One very simple 1-day recipe, and then I have a 2-day recipe, which is an overnight recipe, which is wonderful. So use that bread up. You know, it's sitting in your kitchen. This is a perfect way to use it up. Fresh croutons are amazing, and they can actually have a bunch of different flavors to them. I'm going to do something really simple though today. It's just going to be salt, pepper, and olive oil, and then I'm just going to bake them. But I have this loaf of bread that I'm going to cut into crouton sizes. So let me do that. Now, again, this is personal taste. How big do you want your croutons to be? Now, because this bread is already pre-sliced, the croutons probably shouldn't be so big on one side and then small on the other. So I'm going to try to make them not square, because square would be very small in this. That would be about a 1/4 inch, maybe 3/8 inch dice, which I'm not going to do. But I'm not going to make them, I'm certainly not going to make them as big as I would normally make them, which would be almost an inch square. Those are wonderful croutons. Wonderful size. The best part about this too is that they don't have to be perfect, right? Like, you're making these at home. These are homemade croutons. The ones you get that come out of those bags, they all get like stamped out of bread, so they all look the same. These have like a rustic look to them. They look good. You know, this one's not as big as this one, and that's okay. So to this, I'm going to add salt and pepper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit it with some salt on top. I'm going to hit it with some pepper. And then I'm going to do 2 pours of olive oil. So the first pour goes over everything, like so. And I put a little bit of olive, I put a little bit in there. I don't just toss it in like 1 tablespoon. There's probably 2 tablespoons worth of olive oil. And I'm going to add another 2 tablespoons to this. When I make croutons, I like to make sure they brown, and this ensures that because it makes it so it heats the outside of the crouton up. Oil can get hotter than the outside of the bread, and so if I coat these with oil, then they will get nice and hot, and that caramelization that happens on the outside of it is going to be more robust. There's going to be a little more caramelization, which is what I want. I want them to be brown croutons. So again, we want to make sure my cat likes croutons too. What you want to make sure you do is you taste your crouton, right? I got to taste it to see if it has enough salt and pepper and how it tastes. So yeah, it's a raw bread crouton. Sometimes you got to taste stuff that doesn't taste super great. Excellent. So we're going to put these on a cookie sheet. And now what I want to do is I want to make sure that these are one layer. Spread them out as much as I possibly can. If it feels like I'm going up into a couple layers, I want to get another pan and I want to separate them out. Now I cut kind of the perfect amount of croutons for this, and these are going to shrink just a little when I put them in. As you can see, that's one layer. My oven is 375 convection. That's a 400-degree oven conventional. You're going to take these, put them in, shake them after 5 minutes. Look at them. Do not walk away from these. You're going to have a pile of burnt croutons if you do. Put them in the oven, wait 5 minutes, shake the pan, maybe spin it around, walk away, do that another 5 minutes. These will probably at max cook for about 15 minutes, but we're gonna check them every 5. All right, our croutons are done. Let these cool for a few minutes, and while they cool, my soup will continue to to get its mellow out, its flavors, its harsh flavors, and all the flavors are going to combine. We still got a little more time, and my cat wants me to know that we still have a little more time. So we are gonna wait for. We got about another half an hour before we're ready. So we're gonna plate it up. All right. So this has been sitting for about an hour. As it stands, it is very chunky. Looks beautiful. This would be a wonderful soup to serve. If you want, you can run this through a colander. If you want, you could just take it, run it through a nice fine sieve. You could cheesecloth it if you want it to be smooth. I don't want it to be smooth. I want it to be nice and chunky like it is. And it is a very nice, beautiful, chunky soup. So we're going to put 1, 2. We're going to make sure we give some to our cat so he could shut up. So I'm going to drop a couple of croutons in here. And who doesn't love croutons, right? Especially fresh ones. Oh, that's outstanding. Just had a little bit of time. It's all it needed for all the flavors to meld. You get that smokiness from the paprika. That cumin, of course, has its own unique flavor to this. It adds a really savory flavor to this because you get a ton of fresh flavor. There's all those different fresh vegetables we tried and put in here. It really come out, and it's a delicious, delicious soup. I hope you enjoyed this video. I see a lot of people mispronouncing this online. It's not Gazpacho. I think that's a kind of flatbread. That's not soup. It's called Gazpacho. So while you're here and watching, make sure you subscribe. Just the little subscribe button on the bottom. Hit the little bell so you'll get a notification when I upload a video. Again, I'm still on this weird, I can't put together enough time to do a regular show, but as my plan eventually, once I start crossing things off my list of other things I have to do to start doing this on a regular basis. But as it stands, these come out every once in a while, whenever I get a chance to make one. So just hit that little bell down there. That'll tell you when I post. Thank you so much for joining me at Seasoned Liberally this week, and I hope to see you again soon.